Can you tell us a little bit more about your company? What's your core focus within the construction and infrastructure sector?
Yes, so our core focus is that we actually focus on the builders, so the people that actually are companies that do the work in the construction industry, so that build buildings, that build roads, that build infrastructure, and also do then the maintenance work in those buildings. So that's the target group, and that is the group of customers that we orient everything we do towards. And our mission is to say we actually make those customers better, and with that we make the construction industry better. Hilti was founded in 1941, and we started off by selling direct fastening products into the construction industry, and gradually expanded our portfolio into more hardware products in the beginning. But then based on customer feedback, we kept adding services. And also now, more lately, we kept on adding a lot of software products to our offering, always in a very close dialogue and very closely listening to what problems and what topics actually customers also would like to have from Hilti.
Okay. Is that why Hilti decided to add software to their company's portfolio to fill a strategic role within the question of the customer?
Yes, so Hilti decided to actually add software or construction software to our portfolio, mainly for, I would say, two reasons. Yeah? If we go back to our mission statement to make construction better, when we talk to customers today, a lot of problems that they share with us around productivity, around safety, around sustainability, to really get better in those elements, customers need digital solutions. Yeah, so there was one where we saw, okay, there's a real need from our customers, and they actually also indicated that they would be happy if Hilti would actually expand into such offerings. At the same time, we also looked at the market, so what is actually already out there, and we came to the conclusion that today there is a big gap of really great construction-specific software offerings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a high need for software, but also the demand, the supply, so what actually is offered in the industry today is often not really tailored to the needs of the construction industry. And therefore we saw an opportunity that there's a need from the customer, but also there's simply a gap in the offering where we believe we have a role to play in.
And if you're looking at that industry, the construction, installation, and infrastructure industry, what major shifts are you currently seeing there?
Yeah, look, I always remember when I started with Hilti more than 15 years ago. At that time, our CEO said, look, in construction, they worked today the same as they did 20 years ago, and in 20 years from now, it will be still the same. Now, I think that actually has changed quite tremendously. If we now look at what happened in the last 5 to 10 years, actually we see that the construction industry is really transforming in terms of adopting digital solutions. For example, the average spending for IT solutions in the construction industry is about 1% of net sales. But we already see a lot of companies that, so the upper quartiles, or maybe the top 15% of the companies, rather spend 2 to 3%. Which is much closer to what a manufacturing company would also invest into digital solutions. So there is already a big shift happening where not all construction companies are maybe participating, but we see it's going much more. At the same time, when I talk to customers, I think I didn't come into any customer conversation in the last couple of years where software and digitalization was not part of their board agenda or part of the agenda of the company owner and the leaders of the respective company. So we see there's a lot happening. Customers really think a lot what they should do in terms of digitalization, what benefits they should get out of it. So there's a lot of dynamic now in the industry.
And what is driving that urgency? What kind of strategic decisions are leaders being forced to make as a result of that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of considerations. I think maybe the first one is, if you could go 10, 15 years back, technology, I think, wasn't really ready for construction to adopt digital solutions because, look, construction doesn't happen in a plant, it happens out on a job site. And just fundamental developments like mobile and cloud and IoT are only enabling now a big transformation, a shift to digital solutions. Because without mobile solutions, it's actually super hard to bring a software to a job site. It's actually virtually impossible. So what we today believe is normal, an iPhone and a tablet, was really one of the things that really enable the construction industry to work more digitally now. That's one. So there's a certain digital technology readiness now that enables the transformation. I think the second one is that the leaders in the construction industry more and more realize the importance of the industry, and also that out of that the need to also get better in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of productivity. I think there's just a growing understanding amongst the construction leaders that it's time to actually transform the industry.
And are there trends in this space that are consistently over or underestimated?
Well, if we talk about trends in software, I think today we have to talk about artificial intelligence. I think that's most likely the trend right now. And I think with trends like this, you also always see two elements. One is it's at the moment is also certainly overhyped. That is a big topic. Like there's a tremendous amount of money, like 30 billion plus, just going into infrastructure investments for data centers to cope with the computing demand for AI. So there is definitely high investments, and there will be also very high benefits and value coming out of it. But it's also a bit overhyped in the sense that at the moment a lot of people believe that AI will solve everything, and that will also not be the reality. I think we are still at a stage where we have to really figure out in what elements and where the different types of artificial intelligence will really add customer value, and where it's maybe more a gadget, which then in the end will not lead to very high adoption rates.
Okay, let's shift it a little bit towards digital transformation. How does digital transformation show up in board-level construction discussions today?
I think it's I would assume in almost all of the construction management teams that they talk about it. What I observe is that the construction industry has a couple of challenges in maybe even further accelerating digital adoption, but then also in really gaining the benefits out of digital solutions. I think the first one is a cultural challenge. I think good construction companies, they have built often a culture where you have a lot of ownership and decision making on the project level, or also on the business division level, not so much at a central headquarter. I think which is very good, because that leads to very good operational decisions, and it's also a good way of running a business, that you take decentral decisions and you have a lot of empowerment for the project managers and so on. Now, when you want to digitize the company, that can actually become a bit of a problem, because you cannot have a company with 20 divisions and each division is running then on different digital solutions. So there you have to find a way to still keep your culture and entrepreneurship and local decision making, while at the same time rigorously implementing a more company-wide digitalization strategy, where it's also pretty clear what solutions simply have to be implemented. And to bring that together is actually very challenging in my experience. It's just one of the big challenges.
But of course, digitalization brings business impact. What is the most visible business impact of digitalization?
Yeah, I think if done well, you get a lot of positive business impact. I think the first one where it starts is that you will have more transparency about your business, how it's run. With that, you are actually reducing fundamental risks in your business. I think that's always the first step, that you get better transparency. With that, can reduce risks, make sure that you simply know more what's happening actually in your company. Then out of that transparency, what you will then usually see, that companies get much better in identifying improvement levels. If you go today to a customer, usually they don't even know how much they spend on materials and equipment quite often. We also see that there's quite a time gap between the execution of the project until you really know how much money you make on a project, due to simply disconnected systems and so on. So you have often that only a year or 2 years afterwards, companies really know how much money they made or lost on projects. So that's just some examples. So that if you then implement proper systems, then you get simply higher transparency, and then you can identify improvement levers, productivity, cost reduction levels, but usually also find new revenue opportunities. Comes over time. And if you bring that all together with a very strong construction ERP system, we would expect that a company can lift their whole profit margin by 1 or 2 percentage points. And if you think that the overall profit margin in the industry is rather low, that's actually quite a substantial profit improvement, maybe even 20-30% companies can realize out of investing into really construction-specific software solutions.
Improvements all across the board when digitalization is done right.
Yes, when the digitalization is done in a good way. I think it's very important that to use standardized software. Very much important is that it's tailored to the user, largely obviously on the job site in the field, because that's a lot of the users, but then also obviously for the office users there needs to be a different user experience again, that it also fits to their needs, so very much tailored to the respective audience. That's super critical. Some customization is fine, I think, if really needed, but the direction, and I think that's, if you look into other industries, if you look manufacturing, what Hilti is doing, we are a manufacturing company. We internally also only use standard software to a very large extent. So other industries that are much further on the digitalization journey, they have had these learnings already and select now standard software and integrate and implement it.
And have you ever had to rethink or refine your own narrative around digital transformation to better connect with clients?
I think that depends a lot on the time frame where we look at. So if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, I think we refined it a bit, but we got a lot of reassurance that how we see the industry moving towards more digital solutions with a high need for productivity, safety, sustainability. So that was very reassuring on the direction we want to go. So it's more a bit of refining maybe some minor points in our narrative. If we would take a 15-20 year perspective, I think there we did a 180-degree shift from believing that construction is most likely not an industry for digital solutions at all, or one industry that is super slow in adapting digital solutions, to now seeing that construction is really transforming at a very high speed, and it's at a very high speed actually adopting digital solutions. So there on a longer time frame, we really changed our view, but also I think in line with how the industry also changed. Yeah.
Now that you broached that topic of adoption and change, where do you see the biggest internal resistance in the industry to digital change? How do successful organizations overcome that?
Yeah, I think there's quite some challenges to implement software to really get benefits out of that. The first one I already talked about earlier is the cultural change that is needed. Construction has culture, or many successful construction companies have a culture of decentral decision making, where the project managers can take a lot of decisions, or then respective business divisions have a lot of autonomy to do the right thing for the business, which is going against a digitalization strategy where you need to drive centrally certain improvements, certain standards, and certain core systems. Bringing that together is one big challenge. I think there's a second one, which is simply often mistakes are made in selecting the right software. For example, that you go too much to customization, or that you select too much of software from the perspective of an office user, but you actually want to use it then also with job site people, so that you really need to have a software solution that is really tailored to the user. I think that's a typical pitfall, and if you do that, then afterwards the users won't use it, and then you have then the change management will not work, because you cannot overcome a bad software with a change management program. That will not work. It will only work if you have a good software that fits to the business need, to the needs of the users, and then you can actually also overcome a change management problem. I think there's a third one is also that I observe quite often rather unrealistic belief what is technically possible. Yeah. Whether it's now, for example, IoT technology for tracking tools, or also what AI could already do now. That there's often, I hear from customers, a lot of visionary ideas where they hope they really get a fundamentally different technological solution, which just isn't there yet. And I think then the mistake that I often see is that customers focus a lot on still discussing that and maybe starting their own development around it, or go with a very small startup into a long-term vision, which is not real today. While the real business value would be generated already to maybe 80-90% with the existing solutions out there, and that needs more focus simply on implementing what is available today.
And which emerging technologies do you believe will define the next 5 years in infrastructure and construction, and which ones do you think are overhyped?
Yeah, I think we are still not done with the cloud and general subscription shift in the industry. I think the construction industry is actually on usage of cloud software ahead of some other industries, but that is still something that still needs to get fully into the industry. That's one. I think there's still a lot of upside around Internet of Things use cases for equipment, material, but also for people management, which we will see happening over the next 5 to 10 years. There is also still a lot in simply having good digital solutions that digitize the workflows, moving from paper to software. That is far from done in the construction industry. Yeah. And then I think we will see a lot of benefits also coming out of different AI technologies or artificial intelligence. But it's a bit too early to really know in what directions and where we will actually see the biggest impact coming out of that.
And if a construction CEO came up to you today with, let's say, a big bag of money to invest in innovation, what would you advise them to do and not do?
We have today a lot of very good solutions now in the portfolio where customers can get a lot of benefits out. And I think that's one of the big mistakes that many CIOs and technology teams in the construction industry make, is that they believe, oh yeah, now we bet on the next big thing. While if they do a proper market screening on what standard software is already available. Yeah, I think we're very proud of what we offer at Hilti, but obviously there's also other providers that already today offer good solutions for the industry. And I think our customers should more focus on having a very good selection process, testing internally, that the software they want to select really works for the user, and then putting effort on implementing what is there, instead of now thinking, what could we invest that we have maybe in 5 years and even better product. I think that's more what the industry needs at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much.